Welcome to Wadaag in cooperation with the Somaliland Ministry of Information, Culture and National Guidance.
We'd like to thank the Somaliland National TV for giving us this platform and allowing us to bring this show to you. It's a new type of show that we're bringing to Somaliland National TV, which is a show that's based on the Somali diaspora in the UK, and it's the first show that's going to be the majority of the show in English, so we can attract those new viewers and the people that feel like there's a gap or a difference between them and the Somali elders and the people who speak Somali. So yeah, that's what we're doing today, and my co-host Amina is here as well.
And I'd like to welcome our panellists. So to our left we have...
Hello, my name is Amal Aden Salah. I work in the pharmaceutical industry, and I'm also part of and help to project manage the Somaliland Healthcare Initiative Group.
Hi, my name is Amina. I work in the NHS and I lead the Somaliland Healthcare Initiative Group.
Hello, my name is Mahmoud. I'm from the co-founder of RADA Management, and I'm currently in the UK, back on trying to establish some links with Somaliland.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Ramadan Ahmed, and I'm a policy advisor at the Department for Health. I'm in charge of pharmaceutical licensing and with the HMRA, and it's a pleasure to be part on the panel.
Thank you very much.
And to our right we have...
my name is Ilyas Mohammed. I am the co-founder of Somaliland Football Association, and I'm currently serving president.
Hi, assalamu alaikum. My name is Uqbad Ahmed Iman. I am the co-founder of Somaliland Youth Movement and a staff from Somaliland Mission to the UK.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hibaq. I'm the secretary for West London Somaliland community here in the UK, but I'm also a Somaliland activist.
So here at Wadaag we aim to discuss different topics every other week.
Yeah. And
this week's topic is, as the Somaliland diaspora, do you think you can have a better impact working in Somaliland or from abroad?
Yeah, so I'd like to open that to anybody who feels like they want to go first. If you have any sort of opinion on that, or should we just go to somebody? Yeah? No problem. Go ahead.
That's a very broad question. So it honestly depends on what sort of help we're talking about. So indirectly or directly. So how?
So we made it very broad because we want to know where you take it. So it's up to you whether it's indirectly, directly. It's literally giving us your opinion on that.
I think the biggest impact you can have, obviously, in any project is being there on the ground in Somaliland. So what we've done is we've established a company in Somaliland that helps businesses in Somaliland and also organisations outside of Somaliland looking to invest within Somaliland. A lot of the diaspora, if they can't support Somaliland directly, what they can do is they can raise awareness of Somaliland. So whether that's in their daily dialogue with their colleagues, with in conversations with anybody. I find that every time I travel and anybody that I come across, everybody knows Somalia, but nobody really knows Somaliland, and I find myself having to educate people about Somaliland. Even though we are one of the freest countries in Africa at the moment, we have one of the best democracies in Africa at the moment.
Yeah.
So why is it that we aren't on the international stage?
Right.
I'd say a large part of that fault is through the diaspora ourselves. We find a lot of youngsters, youth in very influential, very successful positions in their careers all around the diaspora.
Yeah.
So they should at least try and find a way to I think give back.
Not to cut you off, I totally understand that, but just to understand that a bit more deeply, you mentioned more towards being on the ground, but do you not feel that it's possible to have influence or make changes from being here? Because there's a lot of people that do things that are great here. Shouldn't we also be able to, you know, build links here to make things better there also?
Of course, that's why I said indirectly as well.
Right.
But the biggest change that you can do is actually being, like I said, being there on the ground, because Somaliland at the moment has a very thriving informal economy, and a lot of the people there, they don't have. If you're in Somaliland currently in Hargeisa and you ask yourself, what do I have in the UK? What do I have in America? What do I have in France, Sweden? And that's not here. Then that is an opportunity right there to benefit the people of Somaliland.
Right.
So when I say that you can, it's much better for you to try and support Somaliland by being there.
Yeah.
It's essentially that then you can see the areas that need the improvement, and then you can help implement some kind of change or some kind of influence to change that. Whether that's if you travel back home into wherever you're from,
yeah.
And trying to raise the awareness or try and raise some kind of campaign to change that that need back
Definitely.
home.
No, I totally agree with you, and just get the thoughts of Amina as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hamdi. Thanks for that. I think just following up on your point about can have an impact directly and indirectly. So for 6 months ago, was it 6 months? No. 6 months ago, Amal and I went back to Somaliland, and we led a group of healthcare professionals from the UK, the Middle East and Europe, and the idea was just basically to scope out the public services and the healthcare infrastructure of Somaliland and how we could help. So I agree with what you say about, like, we have to be there directly to fully make an impact. We couldn't make any changes or understand Somaliland healthcare infrastructure from London. You can't. You have to physically be in the cities, and Somaliland, we went. Is big, so you know, like Hargeisa will have different needs to Las Anod, Bura will have different needs to Ainaba and Berbera and so forth. So it was just important for us to really understand the country, but also understand the people that work there as well. So the local Somalilanders, the actual Somalilanders themselves, what they need, what they want from their hospitals, what the hospitals want from us. Because it's not like you just turn up and say, "Hey, I'm from the West, so I'm here to make an impact." It's like, no, it's like, how can I help you? So a lot of those things, I think it was like mainly like us, like basically getting to know our country, reconnecting with our country, and basically understanding and learning Somaliland. Because I think like it was like my second time and going there without me not seeing family and my first time. So it was just basically, we had to literally understand. You have to understand like what you
need to know what it's like there.
Exactly.
To sympathize and empathize and know what
the last thing that we wanted was like to rock up in the hospitals and say, and we know better. So, no, that's not how you achieve change. That's not how you make an impact. So inshallah, our first trip was a success. Alhamdulillah, we've learned a lot, and we are planning on going back this year, inshallah, equipped with better knowledge of what we've learned from our last trip, and then hopefully make, you know, like an amazing change, inshallah ta'ala.
Right, that's really good.
A quick question I just wanted to ask, what was the main challenges you faced going there
that
you didn't expect?
That we didn't expect. Well, through our own naiveties, like, one of the things I would like to say, just telling Abdurrahman earlier on, we heard about like how maternal and infant mortality rate is very high in East Africa and the developed world, especially like Somaliland. And then I always thought like we're losing hoyas, we're losing mothers in childbirth, but in the hospitals, it was that Hargeisa Group Hospital, because it was like, we did ask that questions, like why is the maternity death rate so high? And it wasn't like when the obstetrician said, was it a 14-year-old girls getting married and having babies and their uteruses are not fully developed. And wallahi, that just shook me. I was like, yeah. Because I have a 16-year-old sister, and I can't imagine her being married at 13. I couldn't imagine me getting married at 13, or any of us, to be honest with you. So to find, like, you know, you've got 13-year-olds, like, just my ignorance, the fact that we've got kids at home getting married. But that's just dhaqan that we have to, inshallah, change and, you know, like, educate people better to say, leave the kids longer in school. You know, she's a 13-year-old child, she's not a wife. And it's also the terminology as well. When we say women are dying, it's not women, it's kids. Kids are dying because they're not meant to be carrying kids at that age. So these are the little things, just our own naivety that we've faced challenges. And but to be honest with you, overall, the experience was amazing. We've been welcomed. Hospital Kistan, you know, the people are ready for change, and they just want like minimal help from us, because I think what we've provided, anybody this panel can replicate that. It wasn't something that needed, you know, a genius. It was just like, what do you want from us? What do you need? We've just recently finished a neonatal winter campaign, and that was just basically a byproduct of Wuhan and what we've seen. So it was basically حقا when in the NHS, like say you're having a baby, you have your hospital bag ready. Over there, a mother will not have a hospital bag ready, and the hospital doesn't have, you know, like.
So the infrastructure is pretty much not there.
Yeah, it's not
minimal.
there. So basically, this when we came back October, we had a 2-week rest. In November, we started a massive neonatal baby clothes campaign drive, and alhamdulillah, that finished in January, mid-January. We've already shipped the clothes out there, and we've had literally, this was what I would say, with definitely a British response to Somaliland need, because we've had donations coming from as far as Cardiff, Glasgow, Sheffield, Manchester, London, and in Kingston. Like people came and pulled together and gave us like a lot of like baby clothes and baby blankets, baby hats, because hypothermia is killing Somaliland babies every single winter, and our hospitals are not equipped. So that's another thing. It's like we just didn't know, and we had to learn. But you have to learn these things and these challenges, and to actually.
But what you're saying is, you wouldn't have known this, not going there and seeing it by yourself.
Yeah, and nobody would tell you these things. Nobody would be so open. Although, like, I've done the research before going there, like nobody would have like told me this about the 13-year-olds, you know, about child brides and losing babies dying in the winter, far more in the summer. If we hadn't visited,
you had to be there.
We have to be there. So what Abdurrahman says, we like you can make an impact directly and indirectly. Indirectly, we could talk about Somaliland to our colleagues, because it's true, nobody would know about Somaliland. You know, like when people say, I've heard about Somalia, but what about Somaliland and the history of Somaliland as well? Because we have to remind people that our struggle started in the 80s, not in 1991.
So sorry to cut you off, but so basically, in your opinion, the biggest impact you can have is by being there on the ground.
110%, and get to know the country. Just because the thing is, like, Somaliland, yes, for Somalilanders. Yeah, but my reality is London. This is where I live. Somaliland's their reality is, you know, I went into healthcare to help people generally, but a young Somaliland doctor would have gone into medicine to help the people of Somaliland. You see where the difference is? So it's like we have to like get to know our country and our people and their struggle
in order to know their
needs.
Order to
make a fantastic
Because
impact.
what you're saying is there's a lot of ignorance from people that are here. Once you get there, you get the full picture, and also what you're basically saying as well is the way that most people help, or you could help from the community, is through donations to supply those things.
Yeah, it's the little things. How many of us, like, you know, my little brothers and sisters, as soon as we grew up, we gave them to the masjid. If I known 10 years ago.
So with that being said, I'm going to take it to this side.
Hiba?
Yeah. So I just want to say, like, obviously I work for Western Somaliland community, which is based here in the UK. So like a lot of the stuff that I do there is a direct impact on the Somaliland community here in the UK. Because I feel like, I also do a lot of work back home, but there's also a community here which is lost. We have youngsters that are in terms of Feltham and stuff like that, and connecting within the community here in the UK. But then I also agree with Amina in terms of like understanding that for me, I came to the so I've always been a traveller. This is not my end goal to be in the UK. My ultimate goal in my education, studying architecture, working in construction, has always been to benefit the Somaliland and the Somaliland people. So for me, like, do all of the learning and the experience and stuff like that is just for the move of going back to Somaliland. But then on the other hand, I feel like one bit that we will explore is the effect that you can have on Somaliland, and Abdurrahman will be able to kind of elaborate on this. It's harder to do well or good for your people, because everything is such a struggle. Doing something that shouldn't be something difficult takes months or weeks. Because at the end of the day, in any looking at Somaliland, there's a lot of processes and procedures and like ways that things, the avenue things go down is not necessarily all the time the right avenue that it goes down. So you end up with a lot of young Somalilanders that have these big ideas of like how they're gonna help their people, change everything, go into the ground and then realise that's not how things work here.
So I feel like, I understand, but I feel like, if I can play devil's advocate for a second, I feel like what you're saying is, you know, a lot of people have these grandiose ideas of making a big change or doing something amazing for the country, but because the infrastructure is not there and the right avenues are not there for them to be able to express those things, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. So that is the reality, clearly. But my point is, in that case, then, if that is our reality where it's hard to get these things across, wouldn't it be better then to maybe educate yourself and get yourself to a position when these things do change, you can then affect the country?
So that was one of the, I think, the things that we definitely do need to explore is at what stage, at me, Hibaq, am I at the level where I stop needing and start giving to the Somaliland community? Because I feel like a lot of young Somalilanders go back looking for jobs in terms of within certain organisations and the healthcare sector and stuff like that. But we as a community and maybe as individuals need to understand. I know I moved back to Somaliland at the age of 21 in 2000 and something. I won't say my age. And anyway, I worked in Somaliland, and to be honest, at that point, coming out of university and understanding that, like, I wasn't at the level where I could give from a constructional point of view, and like, I couldn't give the experience that I needed to be able to implement change. I made the decision to come back to the UK, get experience to be able to go back and one day stand there and be like, not only do I have the education, but I also have built these houses, built these structures that I can tell you that this is the best way forward.
Of course, and that's, obviously that's something that we respect, and that's your opinion based on that. So we'd like to go to Wadaag. You could let us know.
Okay, so my personal perspective is, of course, it's very important for you to go to Somaliland, very important for you to make an impact there, but I feel like we're an unrecognised country, and it's really important that we're ambassadors here in the UK, because the more people know, the more people want help. And it's not even about people who ain't from Somaliland, but even young people. People born and bred in the UK don't even know where they're from. You know, so I personally believe you can do more from here, and by doing more from here, you mobilise people from back home.
100%. No, 100%. I personally totally agree with that. In the sense that I feel like it's very important to cultivate the youth here and the people here who are not really connected with their culture and their dhaqan, and make sure they understand and they then better themselves to then go and help. I totally agree.
If I can give just some examples of what you've done, or...
Okay, so obviously I work in the mission, so a lot of the things I do is work with NGOs and see how they can help Somaliland back home through education, scholarship, how we can get young people back home, whether in the health or in education, or even like master's degree, how we can get them here, educate them here for like post-grad, whatever, and then send them back home, and then you mobilize them because they know more, they've seen more. You know, and I think that's more than you just going there saying, okay, this is what I've learned, so I'm going to pass it on. But they kind of need to go and see that themselves.
Give them an experience.
So what would you say to like Somaliland diaspora that lives here in the UK if they wanted to?
I think the first thing to say is go home and see home. Okay. Because I saw Somaliland for I was born in Hargeisa, but I saw Somaliland for the first time in 2016. Okay. And I think I came back and I was like an activist. I was like, oh my God, Somaliland this, Somaliland that. I didn't know any of that, because you know when your mom tells you, you're just like, okay, oh yeah. You know, you don't take it serious. And then I went back and I was like, oh my God, I actually have a country. You know? So I honestly think the first thing you should do is go home, see the struggles. And I think even when you come back, you become more of an active British citizen. You know what you have, you appreciate what you have more, and you want to give more. So my first advice would probably be go home, see what you can do, and then you come back and you develop as a person and take it from there.
Very nice.
Okay, moving on to Ilyas.
I'm sort of in a dilemma. Because if I give you my brief story, I went back home a lot of times. I know when you go in, I'm older than you guys. And I remember the war. I remember the smell, I remember the burning, I remember the deaths, and I remember coming here, and I remember seeing a developed country and aspiring to something. And there was a time I went back, and I always played football when I was young, back home, even through the Civil War. The Civil War, when they, you know what I mean? And I tried to galvanize the young Somalilanders here. And one of the ways I did it was football. And there was a lot of miles me and my friends drove all the way up to Sheffield. I think Ramadan would remember. We went in Bristol and Cardiff and everything. And ultimately, I mean, we built from 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And all last year we were just doing the back work. I'll tell you in a minute what we're doing. It was all a lot of work to do football, but ultimately it's what you're discussing here. Is making everyone aware of who we are. We're not Somalis, we are Somalilanders. Don't get that confused. Yeah, okay, fine, ethnically they will say. Our nationality is Somalilanders. If you are not brave enough to tell that to the world, Who's going to speak for you?
Yeah, but through the whole football...
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Football is a language. It's not just a game. Everyone understands football. That message can get across a lot. Like I say, you can write a whole newspaper, but a picture can tell you a lot.
Okay.
Football is like that. It tells 1,000 words.
Brings people together.
Now, I tell you, for example, in football, in the world of football, how many people watch when there's a World Cup?
Billions.
Billions.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully, I always pray for Allah to give me life until the day I see Somaliland in FIFA.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's another organization outside of that which is called Kanifa.
Right.
We paid a lot of money. We actually got Somaliland into that. And in the year 2016, we got a team that was consisting of Somalilanders, from 4 of them from back home.
Yeah.
It cost a huge amount of money
to bring them.
Yeah,
yeah, I understand.
And it took a lot of struggle to get them the visas. But ultimately, we took them to Georgia. We took boys from here. We took boys from Norway. We took boys from Holland.
So all
over the place. We put them together.
Right, right.
And I tell you, some of the challenges I faced was not from anyone else, but it was from our own community. And I don't want to tell everything I'm doing. Do you understand? But a lot of the struggles came from within internal.
Like we have to talk about it.
But you know what you set out to achieve with this football? Do you feel like you did achieve it?
Alhamdulillah. I'll tell you in a minute. Just give me a bit of time. So, for example, in 2013, I don't know if you guys remember, but under Barnamujka Football Club, there was a day out on the 18th of May.
Right.
Do any of you remember that?
No.
Because on that day, there was a severe drought.
Oh, yes.
The aim was to raise money for that.
Yes.
And we were the guys behind that. We said, get into the stadium, pack it out, let the world know we are Somalilanders. And I remember, because I was the guy on the tills counting the money. Everyone was paying the money. It was about £50,000 within 10 minutes.
MashaAllah.
Yeah? And that money was going. Because I don't know. Like in Shekada, Ugly Mayo.
But is that a responsibility of yours?
Not necessarily.
It was in your hands.
It was not in my hands.
You said you counted it, so if this is
I counted it.
You have a responsibility.
I have a responsibility, that's true.
Yes.
But you're not working alone.
But you have to understand.
But at some point you're in the chain.
There's the donations. Let's just go back. Let's not really dig too much information into that. Sorry. Sorry, I interrupted you there, host.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Yes, I do apologize. Honestly,
that's fine.
But let's not dig into more information in detail of the reasons and how the whole events unfolded. But in terms of Ilyas is correct, and that's one of the reasons why I believe that those that are from the diaspora or the West can mobilize more and do things like talents like Ilyas and his organization and the people that work around him. I've known them since 2013, and what they're trying to do is trying to sell to the world in terms of football that Somaliland is a sovereign state, independent, and I appreciate the effects and the work that they do a lot, because people like them, their talent and their ability and their credibility needs to be benefited by Somaliland. But it's people like back home. I'm not saying the population of the wider public, but I'm saying few minority stakeholders in Somaliland who are from people who can benefit people in Somaliland, whether it's by projects, whether it's by their experiences and philosophies and ideas and private sectors or public sectors. So yeah, I do apologize for interrupting you there. So
That's right. But just a quick question. So are you saying you can have a better impact from here?
Absolutely. If I expand a bit more into what I think and why I say it, because I think that the West appreciate our talents, whether it's Britain or anywhere else in the West, they appreciate our talent and they're grateful towards us for our
But then are you indirectly suggesting that they don't appreciate our talent back home?
No, what I'm trying to say is it's difficult for you to enter the barriers and break. It's difficult for you to break into barriers with your experiences and your academic qualification in Somaliland and do something for people. So, for example, I'll give you an example. There's a lot of people from the West in Somaliland who go back to Somaliland who have never worked or got experiences in the healthcare sector who go and open hospitals. What's the purpose of you going to Somaliland to open a hospital?
Not only that, the question should be asking is, should they be allowed?
But it's a country which is it's a country which thinks its own people will not try and
You're so desperate in need for change that you value any help.
Yeah, and that in itself has its own issues, because if you've got people who are not experienced opening hospitals, that's a dangerous thing.
There is people. I remember 2017. I went to Somaliland for the first time, and when I went there, I suffer from a lot of migraines. So I went there to Somaliland because I forgot my glasses at that time as well. So there was a day where I was suffering from migraine, and I asked my auntie who was there, can you go to the pharmacy and get me paracetamol? The paracetamol that she got me was not even one that could do any sort of significant effect on to prevent me from constant migraine and vomiting. Instead, the pharmacist sold her complete opposite to what I was after, and literally she was so genuine that what she's giving me is the actual product I'm after. It's things like that really, makes me wonder. There is people in Somaliland, such as Hablihin and Hadan Chura, who are very educated in the healthcare sector, who their experiences and their credibilities and their can be benefited in Somaliland, but they won't be given the opportunity or be brought into the system to facilitate these type of projects. It's not that they don't have the ability to do so, but it's because there is people in Somaliland who feel like they're more supreme to do things in Somaliland, and I feel like it's just going to waste generations after generations, and it's very sad that people like Ilyas and his organization, who I feel like I knew them since 2011, so I know when they started from the grassroots, and that things like 2013 abaraha umadiyo gachonaysa or I mean the purpose was very good and I fully supported it, even though my team Bristol lost that much that day in front of the whole Somalilanders from the UK and the diaspora who came down, but the Ilyas and his team's idea and their vision was spot on, but there is the gara or waxaan xiranahay shaarkii dawladda mise waxaan xiranahay mas-uuliyimadii waan haynaa, therefore ideakii weeyaan still like anaga nagu soo imanaysa lacagtu anina at the end.
But how do we break that chain?
No, but then can I just say something to that though? At the end of the day, and I've had this conversation with a lot of Dhalinyaro and a lot of people from Somaliland, like when have changes and movements in history been easy? Do you get it? If you're sitting here and you're telling me this is not something that you agree with, you can't be willing to not take the fight or make the or put in the work to make the change. I constantly, like, if we look at all the bad stuff in terms of like the fact that there's no systems, there's no agencies and authorities that check what people are doing, there's so much that we can focus on. But as the people that got the opportunity to study in the West, be educated, be able to give back something to our community, if we're not the ones that ta'leen or qoyanka then who is? Because it doesn't matter how much like UN services and African Union envoys that come to Somaliland, these are our people. Do you get it? And if not, we're not willing to make the sacrifices. I spoke to you before about like when you think back on the days of slavery, like it was black people that were the ones that were some of the ones that were beating black people in slavery. Do you get what I mean? And if you use that kind of knowledge and think a history back and you look at our people, at the end of the day, if a Somalilander is the one that's stopping you from helping or doing good in Somaliland, why should you allow it? You shouldn't allow it. You should do something about it.
Yeah. So it's good that you mentioned that, because I want to kind of go off a little bit from where
I started, so can I have the opportunity to finish off?
No problem. Okay, we'll go with the last and then after you.
It won't take long.
Go ahead.
It kind of drifted, but I'll go into it because give me just 4 minutes. There was a time where I was banned from this TV station. I was not allowed to air my opinion. Okay? Alhamdulillah, today you gave me a call, and that's why I gave you an hour of my time. Otherwise, I would not have come. I used to go to home cable TV, pay money to provide services for Somaliland.
Yeah.
What you're describing, movements take challenges. I was not gonna roll over for nobody. Haq Somaliland ku dhashay, nin ku dhashay baan ahay, cid iga qaadi karta wax ma jirto. Okay? You have to understand that. I was not gonna take no patch from no one. So I used to go to home cable, pay the money, and I did things. Alhamdulillah, today, Ilahi gave me the time. I went to Wasaaradda Ciyaaraha. maanta mas-uul fiican baa fadhiya waan la fadhiistay fikradda waan ka dhaadhiciyey insha allah barnaamij baa socda imika it took us a whole 3 years to put the program together insha allah waxaanu rajaynaynaa 16 teams will be coming to Somaliland in 2020 to play an international tournament. Next week, on Friday the 1st, we're going to launch it. We would love all the UK young people to come and find out a little bit more. I'm not going to go depth into it. But this work took more than a decade. There's been a lot of challenges throughout the thing. My advice to any young Somalilanders would be, if you've got hopes for your country, irrespective of what challenges you're going to come across, don't budge for nobody. To make change, you really have to persevere. It's going to take a lot of struggle, it's going to take a lot of your time, your wealth, but at the end of the day, the glory you're going to make is hopefully make a social impact. haddii aan dhinto maanta anuu waxaan ahay ninkii ugu horreeyay Somaliland caalan xiran tahay ku ciyaarta adduunka. Whether it's recognized or not, it's not FIFA, but at least I achieved that. I can tell that to my children and my grandchildren. Ninkii anuu ka dhabeeyay baan ahay. You need to
take that first step, yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
So that's how I would finish it. Not negativity, but with positivity.
Yeah, you know how you have this feeling of, I'm going to do this regardless of whether I know I'm going to achieve the goal or not, but I'm going to keep on pushing for it. My personal opinion is I feel like a lot of us in my generation don't have that. People don't want to go into something if they don't know 110% they're going to achieve their goal.
Or get something out of it.
Yeah, or get something out of it. But you can see the pure like passion for it, and that's why regardless of the challenges you face, mashallah, like you still got enough and you've still continued.
But I think the problem is most people want to see the impact they made. It's not about making an impact, it's about seeing the impact.
But it takes a long time.
But then do you understand that but then sometimes the impact without you would outlive you. So what I mean by that is you wouldn't be alive to see the impact, So the impact could be based on
some things are bigger than
you. And I feel like that's the bit that probably as the youngsters we don't necessarily think about is these changes and this stuff that we're doing when we talk about Somaliland recognition and stuff that you're doing is so much bigger than us as individuals, It's a community thing. So you can't take it
You're only playing one part of so many pieces.
It's like
they all need to contribute.
Correct. So, you know, no, that's all fascinating and all your opinions are greatly appreciated. I just wanted to sort of look at something else also, and I'm going to get Amal to come in on that in a second. I've noticed, but I want to ask you guys a question. I want to open a question to you guys. Do you feel like as Somalilanders, however you want to put it, do you feel like we support each other as a people? Or do you feel like we're like crabs in a bucket? And what I mean by that is, some of you may not know that what that means is, it means that when one tries to get out, the rest pull him back because they feel like, you know, he can't be better than me, or I do not allow him to win. So what do you guys feel? And let's open that with you.
I think we do support each other actually. I think when we started the project, what we got was a lot of support from our family and from our friends, and since our trip everybody that we've spoken to has just come up to us and asked us how can they help, what can they do, how can they get involved. I think it's just opening the doors sometimes and just letting people know what's there and what's available. Obviously we have our own lives and our own careers, and everybody has haters, don't they? It's not just about Somali, it's not just about being Somali or Somalilander. I think it's about your immediate group of friends and family always support you, and when you see somebody who's a Somalilander doing good, you do support them. We all support Mo Farah, don't we? When you see somebody successful, then you feel pride anyway.
Sorry, just to not cut you off, but just on that same point, sometimes I feel like we support people because other people support them. We wait for other people to support them first. So I feel like Mo Farah, for example, a lot of us got behind him because all of a sudden he's British. All of a sudden the Brits like him. So let's claim him back now.
I don't know. I don't think.
I feel like
I don't feel that way. I saw Mo Farah and I saw somebody who represented me and somebody who looked like me.
You know, but what I mean is I feel like generally a lot of people, even if we look outside of Mo Farah, just in general, people generally support you once they see other people supporting you. It's just that I feel like it's just
is that
when you've made it, when you start to do well. So for example, I'll give you an example. You might want to start something else. Let's say you've started your football tournament and it's the beginning stages, right? You haven't got much support. It's very hard to get support at that point. But now once you've got a few people on board, or if you've got, let's say, random companies, I'm not going to mention any companies, you got them on board, all of a sudden that support becomes easier now because they've seen them support you.
It's not
Do you
just
see what I
that's
mean?
not just. I don't think that's exclusive to Somaliland.
Yeah, I think that's just a struggle.
That's just the people.
But how do we eradicate from our communities?
So the thing is that, obviously, so a quick background on how Ubad and I met. I found out about the SYM, the doctor's kits, and yes. 100% had my support. I didn't ask anything. That's how Ubad and I met. Brother Elias, you have my support from now on. I think a lot of it is, wallahi, like, I think, like, listen, I advertise for this whole healthcare campaign on social media, okay? I use Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I did not know any of the people that we were going on the trip with. Right. So the thing is like, and you know, like, there was a sister, Marta, unfortunately, in London, she was just like, hey, I've always wanted to volunteer back home. I'll come with you. What we've essentially done was a road trip across Somaliland with a group of strangers. The youngsters, especially down here, we are more than happy and willing to help, and we're more than happy to put in the time. But I think a lot of it is just like not knowing who's doing anything. And since Somaliland Healthcare Initiative, with what's called Somaliland Life Makers. Yeah. I'm not sure if you know them. They do like stuff back home. They're like local Somalilanders. There's a sister called Hanan from Seattle who's supporting orphans to study at Borough Academy. You just have to like know. Social media is great, just like hashtag Somaliland, just see what's being said. There's a lot of smack being talked, but there's a lot of people who say, please, ya awiya, and just look out for the little people, the little people, the ghosts of like social media, if you will, who are who are trying to do good, and just help them fi sabilillah, because when you're helping them, hey, for Somaliland, no, but above it all, fi sabilillah, no good deed goes unwasted in Islam. So we always have to remember that. So if you're going to help, you need to make sure that the intention is right. And the thing is, Elias, just to point to you, I mean, you might be younger, but like when I started this whole thing, I'm aware, I need like konton kumbat in raise garesen. Is that what you say? 50,000. We raised 1,300, nothing compared to 50k. But wallahi, because it was mal in nas, it didn't belong to us, it belonged to other people. We took full ownership of that money. So we bought the stuff from the UK, we packed it in our bags. Alhamdulillah for Emirates Airlines, who gave us like extra allowance, and we did some crazy stuff to ship everything with us, on us, because we were like, what if I lose it in shipping or something happens and people's money gets wasted, right? My advice for young Somalilanders is to take full ownership of anything and accountability of anything you are doing. I love our elders, I love them, the crooked ones, and you know, our elders are slightly different in the way they think, and you know what it is, they've seen the war from a different perspective, you know, like to us. Their whole life was just like swept under their feet in one go. So the thing is, like, I'm not saying don't trust, what I'm saying is don't trust the elders. Pray for them, but you're going to do anything as a youngster, because they already look at us like we're fools anyway. Take full ownership of that thing. We bought the equipment from the UK, took it with us, and gave it to each unit. We didn't even give it, like, say, to the Hamdi, you're the hospital director. No, I didn't even. It's not about trust, but I just wanted to make sure, because it was for this purpose. I gave it to that. We gave it to that department. So take full ownership and don't expect. And ultimately, if you're going to do anything, it's your dream. I can't say, I want to help Somaliland, but Abdurrahman, I want you to help me because you're a Somalilander. It's my dream. I need to think about how I can make my dream happen as well. So we need to have that like way of thinking as well, because not everybody is going to help you, and that's just humanity. You're
right, and you know what it is? It's very true. And ownership is probably the most important thing, and getting the job all the way through. You know, and having said that, I just want to get Abdurrahman and see what his opinion is on that.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, I'm in I've said that with a lot of the Somaliland community, if you're doing something very niche, something very interesting, you get a lot of support, whether that's from the elders, the youth. You know, personally as well, if I find any fellow Somaliland or anybody just in general, if there's any way I can help them, whether that's just pass on a business card or make a recommendation on their behalf, it's something that we try and do. But the biggest issue we have at the moment is, like Ramadan was saying, is the stakeholders. That's where the support is lacking. With the diaspora, you do get the support. You know, it's unwavering, loyalty almost. But it's the men and women who can actually make the difference, whether that's back home, and sometimes it's even the people that are here who can actually make that difference for you. And it seems that unfortunately sometimes some of the support that you get or the lack of support that you get is through people's own personal agenda.
So what you're basically saying is it's the decision makers that we need to get through to, and they're the ones that are halting the progress of these particular things.
100%. For example, I don't know if you guys know, but in the Horn of Africa, there is no aircraft maintenance station whatsoever since 1989.
Right.
So we've been working in partnership with some airlines that fly regularly into Hargeisa to try and establish an aircraft maintenance station. It would be the first in the Horn of Africa as a whole since, like I said, 1989. What we found was some of these key stakeholders, for example, would try and how do I say? Would try and put a spin on the project for themselves. Another thing as well is we're so focused on looking within ourselves. Every day we're losing on $15,000 to $25,000 of revenue from aircraft overflying our airspace.
Right.
And you know it's unfortunate that it is that way, but yeah, there's no issue at all with the diaspora with regards to support. It's the key stakeholders.
So it's just when it gets above diaspora, all of a sudden it stops there.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. No, interesting.
I know that's something from personal experience. It's not just something that
I could see it. You would be like, yeah, I've done this.
I don't know. I feel like any time that you're trying to make change and trying to do anything, there's always going to be negativity. For me, the biggest thing that gadiga ina waxa raba more ina sameeyo is markuu qof igu orto waxaas ma qaban kartid ama you shouldn't, and then I ask the question and I say, is that because of the deen or is that because of the constitution? And if either don't go against what I'm doing, that makes me want to do it more. Do you get it? And I was in Somaliland politics for a while, and to be honest, like I felt like when you want to like change something, or you see a vision, or you have a dream of something changing and changing the way that maybe Somaliland politics and any of that type of stuff is done, I feel like you're always going to have human beings don't like change, full stop. It's not Somali thing, it's not us thing, it's like just a general thing. People don't, people don't like change. So and then when you do that to a group of people that haven't necessarily had the greatest life for the last 28 years and have kind of gone through war, it makes it even harder for them because they're so used to this system. But I feel like the best way to do that is for us as individuals to showcase the good and stop. So I would go into meetings with the young Dalanyoran, and they'd be like, oh, they actually Islam, it's so crazy. And then I'm like, that's not how you would speak to someone when you're trying to convince them. Do you get it? Yeah. What you need to do is show them the better option. Show them how using qabyalad is not benefiting them or it's not benefiting us. Show them how investment can help our country and healthcare and all of these stuff. The moment that we start to do that, then you won't be able to get that. But I guess in the line of work that I do, clearly the haters are always going to be haters. There's not really much you can do about them.
Just to add to your point about that, so how can you tackle, like you said, something that's almost become ingrained and in these stakeholders, the way that they operate? How can you change that? For example, if you were sat in front of people who can actually effect that change, and they don't take you seriously, whether that's because you're Qurbachog or you're you're a 25-year-old, how can you change that? Are you going to wait 4 or 5 years for that term to end? Are you going to let that opportunity? Because
if there's a will, there's a way. If there's a will, there is a way. Today, no one can tell me there's something in Somaliland, and there's nothing in Somaliland today. None of you guys can tell me. And look at Elias's example of a decade of trying to do something, irrelevant of everything else. I'm not trying to say today is going to be the day that you're going to see the fruits of your labour. I can't say that for you. And if you want that, then you're probably in the wrong line of work. It's better to work in Tesco and know every day what you're doing.
Sorry to cut you off there, and just to sort of go on the man's point a bit more. What I think he's trying to say is, for example, I understand examples with Elias. Elias, for example, from his own fortune, he did what he had to do, but what he's talking about is slightly different, because if you're trying to make change in terms of policies and things, you need signatures from people higher up or people in the government. It's not the same as what Elias done. Elias done from himself, from raising funds and doing something that's totally private, but you're going to need that signature.
Something governmental, yeah.
You're
going to have to resort to something unethical, unfortunately. I don't want to say
not necessarily. What dream are you selling, though, in terms of that? All right, I'm not going to go back into detail about this debate, but I previously had a debate about like Somaliland and the way that parliamentary seats are elected, yeah?
Let's stay with the
politics. No, it's not about the politics. Okay. It's just about the system in terms of how it's done. Yeah. What I'm saying to you is, yeah, if I'm as an individual and I'm saying, and what I do not like, this is against my constitution, or this is what I shouldn't have to do, yeah? We as a community should be able to at least come together and figure out a solution. And me and you've spoken on the phone of ways of getting what you need to get without having to you still have at the end have to go to them, but what are we going to them in the table? Do we need to use someone as the face of whatever you're doing to be able to combat that? Do we need to give them something as an option to be able to come? What I'm trying to explain to you, I'm not saying that there's one way.
There's always another way.
But you just haven't thought
I believe maybe you need other people's opinions. Maybe you just need to sit down. But you can't just think there's one way for everything.
I was just going to say, Abdurrahman, you're very right, because you're saying we need a top-down approach. You're saying I can't do this without their approval, and I'm not trying to make them look bad. You know, I want to work as a country. But then you have to understand sometimes there's a way you can go through these people. Go and do it their day way. I don't know how it is, but just do it their way.
But do you know what? Okay, I think that leads nicely onto something that I think we've kind of segued into this now from what we were talking about is. So, do you feel like there's a disconnect between the youth or dhalinyarada and the elders, whether the elders are in governmental positions or whether they are family members or the community at whole? Do you think there's a disconnect and there's a lack of trust between each other?
I wouldn't say a lack of trust. I'd say there is 100% disconnect.
Right.
It's because the elders unfortunately have a view from the 80s when there was a unified government, and you know they are still stuck in their ways, unfortunately. Yeah. And with the youth, they tend to be more liberal. They seem to adapt. They want to be. If you go to Hargeisa today, of course it's not going to look like London, but you'll see a lot of the youth are adapting the cultures and the mannerisms of the West. It's because they really. The youth want to progress, but I feel like unfortunately sometimes with our very conservative elders, and sometimes even the way that respect works, they in our culture they are
comfortable.
Or held back.
But do you not think this country faced those struggles once upon a time as well?
Yes, unfortunately, but the question that would have is, do you want to be forever stuck 300 years behind the rest of the West?
Of course not.
But then on the other hand, I'm a young black Muslim girl wearing a hijab on a construction site. I'm always going to feel some type of way. I'm going to feel, being on the train, I'm going to probably feel some sort of racism. I'm going to feel all of that. But they're the struggles that we endure as individuals based on any aspect. Why do young Somalilanders think that they're any different to not face those struggles and have to go through those hurdles to be able to get to where they want to get to, is the question I have. Because at the end of the day, it's easy to say, you know what, things didn't work out the way that I wanted to work out. All right, that's fair enough. But then also on the other hand, anything, and me being in the career that I am, at the level I am, it's taken hard, it's taken fight, it's taken, do you know what I mean? And anything that you do, if you're willing to put that much passion into it, then you would reap the benefits. But I feel like the lack of communication between the young and the Somali, I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to identify what is dhalinyarada, because I've seen some people that are,
anyone below the age of 30, I'm very passionate about that. You can't be 37
but you know,
no,
it's 35 though. Internationally, internationally it's 35.
International 35.
Yeah, it's 35.
Got a couple more years. But anyway, listen. What I'm saying is, to me, like, because I think that word gets abused, dhalinyarada.
Yeah,
like you have a 45-year-old calling himself dhalinyarada, you know. And I'm very passionate about this. And as a result, we're alienating, wallahi, like 15 to like 25-year-olds who are doing amazing thing. And I'm always impressed by that generation, and what they're coming up with, their way of thinking. MashaAllah, tabarakallah, may Allah, protect them. So, but then by having a 45-year-old man who's almost 50 saying Wadal Nero. No, that's not how it works.
I think they do it to keep you where you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're too young to make these choices.
You're too young
to make this decision.
So I don't think, I refuse to be identified as Dal Nero. I say I'm a professional.
Wow.
I know I've got 11 years in my field.
Wow.
So when you come and talk about, I've got a decade and something, 3 different countries, please don't come and talk to me like Dal Nero. Okay? And I know it's wrong because like Somali, like youth, this of Dal Nero, it's good for a woman to be youthful. I'm against that. So,
it's
35, above 30 matters, but you know.
Do you know what it is? It's not really. I don't think it's more of an age. It's more of a mentality thing, and what you identify as what you sort of understand in for example in your day-to-day life. For example, a person who's 25 here and a person who's 25 back home is not the same. 25-year-old back home is 40 here. Do you see what I'm saying to you when you hear about
struggles?
When there's kids that are 15 who are the head of the household. 15-year-old can barely blow their noses here. So do you know what I mean? It's not about age, it's about where you are.
It's about, I understand culture, but then
You know
that's
what I mean?
that culture. Well, does that make sense? You can be bought by a 5-year-old. 5-year-olds are very dangerous in Somalia. 5-year-olds in this country are cute. 5-year-olds back Somalia.
Yeah, so it's more sort of your, just your mentality.
So, but that's dhaqan Samaha. And then like, dhaqan Samaha. That's one thing, but I just feel like, what's it called? Talking about what was it called? Like,
the Dalniyar.
Yeah, Dalniyar. I think that the term Dalniyar is used loosely in some not just Somaliland but Somali dhaqan. That word is used. You nimbidar to hagga marasa will say to Dalniyar and he'll hit on you. Oh no, honey, that's not how it works. Okay? So we need to.
And so what should we call them? The ones that after when they're no longer Dalniyar.
The question we say disconnect between the elders and the youngsters. I don't even think anaka you elders kama harun tamarkala. But and if we need to talk about and we need to be honest about generation 45, like say what's it called, 40s, the 40-year-olds I think are messing. I'm going to be controversial here, say the 40-year-olds Somalis are messing up a lot of stuff for like the 20-something, the 30-somethings and the 60-somethings, because it's not the 60-something and the 80-somethings that we got to worry about. Well, sweet awo and ayayo, but the generation 40 who's like, you know, taxi driver here in London, you're a MB in Hargeisa. How did that happen? Explain that to me. When? What? It's, you know what I mean? Like, how did that happen? So it's like these are the things that we're not really talking about. And you have to when you work as, you know, expats, we really need to like put them in their place, because we did have, you know, I'll be your guy. They're like, no, that's my alumni. Who also work in the hospital. They'll take me to the director, thank you. So we can't be naive as well. Does that make sense?
I just say that as well, because that's very important. Now, obviously, we want that trust between the elders and the. But how about if we did it ourselves? 70% of the Somalian population is young people. Why don't we trust each other to make the difference rather than saying, I want Abdullahi Chama to notice me? Hassan could do it for you.
Or we just wait for them to pass away.
The question that I have that is, how many of our MPs are of the same age as, you know, how many of them are over a certain age? Say, for example, over 40. How many of them are within that youth category? None at all.
None, is it?
So but there's people that work for them.
5-year-old MP in Somaliland. I think they'll be they're all like.
Exactly. So if the key decision makers in the country aren't even in the same mindset.
But look, let's just say the Somaliland mission right now.
Yes.
You can say, I'm going to come and see Ayaan, but you can easily come and see me.
Yes,
do you see what I'm saying to you?
Very true.
So it's like going back home and saying, I want to see Wasirka, I want to see this. But you can go see the young person. He can go and help you. It's about trusting each other.
But yeah, and I think going back to that point, I think it's the youth that don't trust the youth. So if you're a young person and you work at one of these wasarats, or if you work at an organisation like Oxfam, wherever it is, you should be able to, a youngster should be able to come in and think, you know what, a young person can actually facilitate my needs. But automatically, it doesn't matter who it is. So when I'm even at the community and stuff like that, and I'm walking around or whatever, most people assumptions are that, like, as a youngster I can't be in a good deed. Do you get it? So maybe I'm not the top of whoever, so they're automatically assuming that there's probably someone higher that can facilitate their needs or whatever they're doing. So what we need to do is, which I agree, is to kind of like start to trust each other before we even talk about the issue between.
Stop using the same labels that we're running away from. It's really simple.
But that's what we did essentially. We actually connected with all the young medical students, young doctors that were on the ground, and they helped to facilitate all the meetings, all the logistics. Without them, I don't think we could have done half the things.
And they know more, don't they?
And they know more, and then they were able to guide us and say, director or this directress talked to her in this way, blah 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 blah. So you know, they gave us the inside knowledge that we need to gain for each hospital and each region. And then don't forget, because each like hospital, it will like say there's Hargeisa Public Hospital, but there's also Ras Anod Public Hospital. They will have directors, but they will also have 2 different regional medical offices. So they facilitated things from a regional medical. So it's like I think then there's the regional medical officer for that particular province. And this is what these kids, not what I call, but these youngsters have facilitated for us, and they've helped us that way. But again, like credit where credit is due. My first ever report, Ugubad actually say, is when I wanted to know about like what Somaliland hospitals have got like in terms of cardiac arrest, emergencies. Ugubad, you were going out on a trip in March, and I said, and we didn't know each other. I said, hey, well, these are the questions that I want answered before we go out, and nobody can answer these for me. So Ugubad did the first ever scoping visit for us out of her own time while she was doing something else on the side. And then the thing is, well, it's pay it forward, and we've heard about pay it forward, and how kindness goes on. And like we're more than happy, like, and we've done the same for 2 other girls who wanted to do a public health initiative into like a sensitive healthcare topic. So we said, well, you need to know what's out there, and we'll report back. So I think it's just low-key helping each other out as well, and give credit where credit is due, and as you said, trust each other, because we're all like, our goal is the same. We care about Somaliland because of Somaliland. Somaliland qaran dadka.
Of course, no, absolutely, no, guys, you're absolutely right. I feel like that's the greater good, and we are all here for the same reason, and we should never forget that. I mean, before we wrap up, I just want to just cover something else really quickly, just to each of you, just to briefly sum up. If you could tell yourself, your younger self, maybe 5 or 10 years ago,
basically reflecting on the last decade, what advice would you give your younger self?
What advice would you give your younger self now? Anyone can start. We can go this way. Elias. Elias, we'll start with you.
The one word I would use is perseverance. I mean, waddankaagana xasuusno. Because I'm alright. The risk that I foresee is the younger generation fall into a trap where they actually believe the concept of Somali Nimo is political. But I would like everyone, all the young people, to say, please, if you look back, always look at history and believe, please look at and persevere for the future.
Yeah, but personally for yourself, I understand that as something else you feel like, which is fine to have an opinion, but for yourself,
perseverance.
Perseverance. Okay, great. Thank you.
Wait, is there something you'd like to have known before you started your journey as well? Like if you could give your younger self a tip.
They could have given it, but I would rather have it. And looking back now, I'd rather have gone through that struggle. It only makes me stronger. Okay. I believe in myself a lot more now.
Wicked. Great.
I think I'd say I wish I went home sooner. That's it. I feel like if I went home sooner, I would have done more in my lives. I would have dedicated my whole life pretty much to Somaliland.
So do you think you would have done like a lot of different life choices?
Most definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Even though what I've done in career-wise, with my masters, everything all sort of helps me to help Somaliland, but I feel like I would have done more.
Yeah.
You would have been. Do you think you would have been
more of an activist a long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say go home first. Delki Sarak. Yeah.
Hiba?
I would say a few things, but I'd definitely say patience. I feel like Hiba probably a few years ago, before all of this activism and all of that, would have expected change and changes very quickly. But I realised the more patient you are, the more things like doors that open. And even I would have a time frame of expecting myself to do this, but in actual fact, when I've got patience and I'm thinking about the changes that I can do for the good of my people, it actually opens more doors. And then I'm like, whoa, this has happened really quickly. I was expecting it to happen like in 5 years, but then it actually happens now. And also, like, one of the things I would tell myself is, like, it's within our community, which I don't really see a lot, it's okay to have faith in your people. It's okay to have faith in individuals being able to do something or do well in your, because like a lot of time, especially in the community, when I speak to people, like everyone shakia kuchira from everybody else. So I feel like what I would have said, and I've learned so much more, like Ilya said, doing wrong or having to go through struggle only makes you stronger.
Definitely.
And
so if you could just sum it up in one word, what would you say? And I'm putting you on the spot. If you could sum it up with one word, what would you have told yourself? Just one. Only one.
If I was to tell myself, I would say, patience.
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 Brilliant. I think that's a really good one.
I don't think I used the word, did I?
What would you say?
I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea. I'd
explore.
No.
Because you said going back.
Research.
Research.
You're cheating, guys.
Yeah.
One word.
Home.
One word.
Just home.
Home.
Find what home means.
Yeah. Bilka. Okay.
Belky.
Belky. Yes.
There
Even
you
better.
go,
Nice.
Belky.
Well done.
I wish I went back home way before when I became an adult, or young adult, should I say? But I wish I also explored the different, because in Somaliland, different regions have different cultures and different feelings and different day-to-day experiences. For example, people in Barnamujka don't have the same experiences as people from Las Anod, whether differences or whether just the way people function.
Yeah.
So
you think just going out there and seeing this would have told you
I wish I went when I wish I had the opportunity to accept the invitation from my parents to go when I was a young teenager. But going back to it now, I feel like I missed out so much when I was young.
Yeah.
That's how I felt.
Because now I feel like I found out my roots and my heritage and such an adult age. It really frightens me for the next generation.
No, not totally understandable. But that's fun.
Yeah, I would say at that I was 15 at the time, so I used to read a lot, and I wish I read more about the history of Somaliland. I think at the time, actually, if my parents mentioned Somaliland, it was so disinterested in it. But the history and the culture is so rich.
Yeah.
And it's a shame it's taken me up until 2012 to finally see that it's
the beauty.
The beauty of the country. Yeah. And it's even, I feel even more grateful now that I can actually help help back home. So essentially just read more about the country.
Yeah.
And history.
So again, increase your knowledge. Great.
I know I had time in life, but there's no
You can say a word or a few, nothing, not a great amount.
So something I would have told my younger self.
Yeah, whether it's 5 or 10 years, whatever.
If it's something that you would have wanted to have known,
that
would have
helped you. What have you learned now that you would have thought would be better earlier?
It's weird because I agree with Brother Ilyas said. Everything that happened in life kind of led up to the moment that I led like a team in Somaliland, right? Because it was like all the other experiences, Middle East, Nepal, Abu Dhabi, okay, I led the first of the cleft palate campaign for the UAE. So the thing is, like, a lot of 10 years ago, because I was scared, okay, and I'm still scared, but I feel like these experiences have kind of helped me, and I wouldn't have had these experiences working in the countries 10 years ago. So I think everything kind of led up to a moment in life where I could do something. But I'm going to take advice from Somaliland as a country. The resilience of our people, I want to have that resilience. So the one word that I want to leave myself is just have the same resilience and in me, so I can just persevere and see things.
Never die spirit.
Inshallah.
Nice.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
So I agree with Ubaid and Ramadan about going home earlier. My first time was last year. But a lot of the time, the reason I didn't want to go back home was a lot of people that I see go back and just go on holiday, hotel. And I thought it was a bit of a waste of time to do that. But what I wish is if I did go back earlier, was to actually go back with a purpose. So not just wait until 2018 when came up with the project. There are a lot of projects we could have done and to go back earlier with a purpose.
Can I just say something? Can I just add something?
Yeah.
You're right, because a lot of young people, my sister went to Somaliland way before me. She cares about Somaliland zero right now. Yeah. But when I went for the first time, I went there to volunteer. So I didn't go for holiday. I went there, I was like, okay, I'm going to volunteer for 7 weeks, and that's what I'm going to do. So when I came back, I realized what people were actually struggling with. Like, it was like actual communities I got involved with.
Yeah, exactly. Because in Marta family, when we go with family, we're sheltered from a lot.
Going to
Mansour and
Abasta. We only see the beauty of the country. And when you go, you're right, when you go with a purpose, you go volunteer, and you have a purpose. I really want to see how this works. you get to see the beautiful side of it, you also see the ugly side
the reality.
But it doesn't leave you like, you say, okay, I'm going to try and do something about this.
And one thing I struggled with when I went was, as a Qurba Chowk, you could actually spend 7 weeks in the country and not mingle with the locals.
Yeah.
At least the good thing with us was at least we were going and we were mingling and we were working with people, but a lot of people do go back, stay in their hotels and stay in their villas and
that's what I plan to do this summer, because both time I went I was just working. I do want to go and enjoy the scenery, but I think it's really important to get involved in the communities and Skawa in as well, because it's like, I'm minutes. No, get involved with the community.
Okay, so then now we've got to wrap it up, guys, but the reoccurring item from all of you guys is basically go back home. That's the message you're sending. Go back home. We just want to say thank you for coming today to participate. To the people watching, we're going to be back every 2 weeks with different topics. We're going to have different panelists. If you want to get involved, get in touch, please do follow us on our social media, which is _Wadaag_. And if you want to, comment or use a hashtag, that's DW, let's talk about it.
Thank you.
Well done, guys.